Buying a home, one of the biggest purchases that you will ever make in your lifetime. But the rules on home buying are changing, and it's based on not just one particular factor, but three unique factors that are occurring right now that are ultimately changing the rules of home buying. And we see the first one, particularly here in Florida, but it is a problem across the country, is this notion of higher insurance costs and homeowners insurance that is very difficult, if not in some cases impossible to get. The next factor is the economic factor, higher interest rates that have sort of defied expectations that they would start to fall earlier this year than what they appear currently on track to do. So interest rates have remained relatively high, and when you have high interest rates, that means that you can't afford as much of a mortgage or to borrow as much money as what you might have been able to 3 years ago when interest rates were at historical lows. And then the third factor, which is sort of the new wrinkle that rolled into the headlines this year, involves the means of purchasing. Sort of the transaction itself is about to change and is certainly in the process of changing dramatically this year as a result of the recent legal settlement by the National Association of Realtors. So that's a lot of different factors that are sort of coming together to ultimately change the rules of home buying. So in this segment, we're going to kind of talk about four different things that home buyers need to be aware of in this dramatically changing environment. So welcome on into Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. One of Central Florida's longest running radio program, coming to you on a host of stations throughout the Central Florida marketplace. Also one of the top 25 financial planning podcasts on the World Wide Web. So make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Once you're there, make sure you subscribe as well. That way you don't have to worry about finding us again. Plus, you'll get alerts whenever we upload new content. We've also, of course, got our YouTube channel. So if you want to see me in the Nelson Financial Planning Studios, which are a part of our office, well, then you can go to our YouTube channel at Nelson Financial Planning. Any trouble finding any of this stuff, go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com. You'll see a bunch of icons. Click on those. They will immediately connect you over to the channel on whatever the particular platform is that you're looking to find us on. My name is Joel Garris. I'm a certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary at Nelson Financial Planning, where we got a team of great folks who are also certified financial fiduciaries, and some of them are certified financial planners as well. Some of them are CPAs as well. Some of them are IRS enrolled agents. Some of them are national security advisors. You get the picture. It's a team approach at Nelson Financial Planning, where we stand ready, willing, and able to help you improve your finances this very week. So make sure you give us a call at the office, 407-629-6477, or visit our website, Nelson Financial Planning, to schedule that absolutely free conversation with us at any time. And when you do that, you come in for that free conversation, we give you a free copy of our book, Next Gen Dollars and Cents. So a whole lot of good stuff can come your way just by picking up the phone or going on to the website and scheduling that. So you know the deal, right? On home buying, if you've bought a house or if you've sold a house, at some point there's a real estate commission that winds up typically coming into play, and so as the seller, you have an agent, and that's usually the listing agent. And then the person that comes up and is the buyer, they typically kind of have an agent as well. And so what had been happening for decades is that the typical price or the transaction costs was 6%. Well, if it's a $500,000 house, that's $30,000. That's a lot of money. All of that actually wound up coming out of the seller's pocket, typically in these kinds of transactions. So the seller, in essence, was paying the full 6% of the price that was the commission that ultimately was then getting split between sort of the buyer's agent and the seller's agent. I mean, that was the sort of the method where the seller and the buyer each had their own agent. But at the end of the day, it kind of came out of the seller's money, and it was a relatively high number at 6%. And that was the traditional platform for decades. Well, all of that is over, and it's over in June per the legal settlement by the National Association of Realtors. The settlement was done to sort of settle claims that the industry, the real estate agent industry, had conspired to keep agent commissions high. And as a result, now home sellers will have much more room to negotiate those fees. And we don't really know how all of this is going to completely shake out, but the bottom line is that it is going to change from what was the model for a long period of time. So the buyer may have to pay for their own agent out of pocket if they want representation. No longer is the seller going to feel like they've also got to compensate the buyer's agent. It's estimated that the costs that were typically 6% or 5% of that total purchase price may very well go down and range somewhere in a 3 to 4% range. That's a pretty significant savings, particularly if you are the seller of a property. And then you may see more sort of flat fee type structure or hourly rate or hourly fee type structure. You know, what's interesting about this is the kind of the same thing that happened in the financial services industry, except in the financial services industry, it happened 30 years ago. So I'm not sure why it's just finally getting to the real estate industry, but if you think back to the financial services industry 30 plus years ago, it was a heavy transaction type of structure, whereby when you were investing in a mutual fund, you paid a front-end load that was 5.75%. Isn't that interesting how close those numbers are? In a typical 6% on a real estate transaction, 5.75% to buy a fund. Now, this was, of course, 30 years ago, and as a result of the same kind of sets of circumstances, there was a lot of regulatory pressure, a lot of class action structure pressure. I mean, all of those kinds of things came and ultimately changed how business was done in the financial services industry as well. And so now the financial services industry operates much more in sort of a flat fee. You can even find hourly fee, or kind of more of an assets under management, kind of more of a ongoing form of compensation, and that form of compensation typically will range, well, unfortunately the industry at large hovers around north of 1%. We're usually much lower than that, but it just gives you an interesting perspective. And what strikes me about this conversation about the real estate market and what's going on in there is this is the same thing that played out 30 years ago in the financial services industry. And so ultimately, the notion that costs will go down for the consumer, yeah, that's what's going to happen. And that's certainly, there's a lot of precedent for that. So starting in July, so the settlement, the agreement that was reached by the National Association of Realtors, it's effective starting in July. So starting in July, most home buyers will have to sign agreements saying how much their agents are going to get paid. Definitely a changed environment from a transactional perspective. Bottom line, if you're in the home buying market, ask the question, get the information, get the details, and make sure that you understand sort of that the situation has changed dramatically. So make sure you're taking the time to ask questions. We got some other thoughts in terms of some of the other things that are sort of the new rules of home buying in today's environment. And we're going to continue all of that conversation. But first, we got to take a break, and then we will return here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris of Nelson Financial Planning.